The drama surrounding modern car culture didn't erupt overnight. It didn't begin with one viral video, one reckless burnout, or even one chaotic car meet. Instead, it built slowly year after year until one moment finally forced the entire community to look in the mirror. That moment came in a quiet tourist town nestled in the mountains of Tennessee, Gatlinburg. For decades, Gatlinburg had been a peaceful gateway to the Smoky Mountains. Families came for scenic drives, roadside diners, and the nostalgic charm of a classic American road trip. But 5 months ago, something very different unfolded on its streets. What should have been another gathering of enthusiasts, people bonded by their love of machines, speed, and craftsmanship, spiraled into chaos. Crowds packed the roads, engines screamed through narrow streets, burnouts filled intersections with smoke. Police scrambled to regain control as frustrated locals watched their quiet town transform into a circus of revving engines and reckless behavior. To outsiders, it looked like a riot disguised as a car meet. Too many enthusiasts watching online. It felt like something even worse, a symbol that car culture itself had lost its way. The question that lingered afterward wasn't simply why the Gatlinburg chaos happened. Some blamed fuel shortages, others pointed to unbearable traffic or the usual cocktail of youthful adrenaline and social media cloud chasing. But those explanations barely scratched the surface. What really mattered was the bigger picture, how a small, loud fraction of the car community had become capable of hijacking the reputation of an entire hobby. Because the truth is, car culture didn't always look like this. To understand what's happening today, you have to travel back nearly a century long before viral videos, Instagram builds, or influencer-driven car meets. In the early days of automobiles, enthusiasts gathered around a far simpler idea: speed. Before World War II, car culture existed mostly through racing. It lived on dusty dirt tracks, along improvised drag strips, and in the brave attempts of early speed demons chasing land speed records across barren salt flats. The concept of car meets filled with polished builds and coffee conversations hadn't really formed yet. Instead, the thrill came from pushing machines beyond what anyone thought possible. Even then, communities began forming around these machines. Early car clubs brought together passionate drivers who were fascinated by the rapidly evolving technology of automobiles. These groups weren't just social circles, they helped shape the entire industry. Their enthusiasm pushed manufacturers to build faster, stronger, and more capable vehicles. But it was after World War II that car culture truly exploded. The war had accelerated technological innovation, and when soldiers returned home, many carried with them mechanical skills and a hunger for excitement. Cars were no longer just tools for transportation, they were expressions of identity. Hot rodding took off across America as young enthusiasts began modifying old cars to go faster and look cooler. Custom builders experimented with chopped roofs, unique paint jobs, and performance upgrades. Off-roading gained popularity as rugged vehicles were pushed into terrains they were never designed to conquer. Manufacturers noticed. Companies quickly realized something important. People didn't just want reliable transportation. They wanted personality. They wanted cars they could customize, modify, and make their own. Suddenly, manufacturers weren't just competing over horsepower or luxury, they were competing to build the next enthusiast icon. Entire communities formed around different types of vehicles. Muscle cars roared onto the scene with aggressive styling and raw power. Small sports cars captured drivers who valued precision and handling. Luxury sedans were transformed into rolling works of art through customization and style. At the same time, the aftermarket industry began booming. Companies sprang up offering performance parts, body kits, wheels, and tuning upgrades. Some manufacturers tried to dominate this space themselves, while others wisely stepped back and allowed independent builders to flourish. The result was a golden era for enthusiasts. Car culture became more than just driving, it became creativity. It became craftsmanship. And perhaps most importantly, it became community. Then another revolution arrived, one that would reshape car culture around the world. Japanese sports cars. By the late 20th century, Japanese manufacturers were building lightweight, affordable sports cars that delivered incredible performance without the price tags of European exotics. Models like the Skyline, NSX, CRX, Miata, and MR offered something revolutionary: accessibility. For the first time, young enthusiasts could buy a car that was both affordable and thrilling to drive. These vehicles were also incredibly modifiable. Owners treated them like blank canvases, transforming them into drift machines, street racers, or finely tuned track weapons. The tuner scene exploded. But the culture surrounding these cars had something else that made it magical mystery. In the 1990s, information about these vehicles didn't travel instantly across the globe. There were no YouTube channels showcasing every detail of a new build. No Instagram pages filled with perfectly edited highlight reels. Instead, enthusiasts relied on grainy VHS tapes, obscure magazines, and whispered rumors about insane builds happening halfway around the world. That lack of instant access created mystique. It made discovery part of the experience. The 1990s were also one of the most diverse decades in automotive history. Automakers produced everything from quirky hatchbacks and tiny off-road SUVs to outrageous supercars and sleeper sedans. If you wanted a strange or exciting vehicle, chances were someone was building it. Cars were affordable, platforms were customizable, and the entire scene felt open to anyone willing to get their hands dirty. It was, in many ways, the perfect era to be a car enthusiast. But like many golden ages, it didn't last forever. Over the past 25 years, something shifted within the automotive industry. Manufacturers began focusing less on driver engagement and more on technology and mass market appeal. Fun gradually gave way to practicality. Sedans disappeared, replaced by SUVs. Small hatchbacks gave way to crossovers. Instead of lightweight sports cars, companies began marketing massive high-powered SUVs as performance vehicles. For enthusiasts who love manual transmissions, simple mechanical designs, and driver-focused experiences, the options shrank year after year. By the early 2000s, car culture had entered a strange new phase. Instead of celebrating modern vehicles, enthusiasts increasingly looked backward. Cars from the 1980s and 1990s, the last generation of truly analog machines, suddenly became desirable classics. At first, this felt exciting. Legendary Japanese sports cars that had once been forbidden in certain countries began reaching the legal age for import. Enthusiasts could finally own the machines they had admired in magazines for years. But with that excitement came an unintended consequence. Prices skyrocketed. Cars that were once affordable entry points for young enthusiasts suddenly became collector's items. Even modest sports cars began climbing into price ranges that put them out of reach. For many newcomers, the hobby started to change. Where classic car enthusiasts had once been just one part of the community, suddenly almost everyone was chasing older vehicles. Not just the obvious icons from the 1950s and 60s, but also cars from the 80s and 90s that represented the final era before heavy digitalization. And with rising prices came something else: gatekeeping. Many longtime enthusiasts began treating their vehicles not just as hobbies, but as investments. Rare models were purchased and stored in climate-controlled garages, rarely driven to preserve their value. Instead of being modified, raced, or enjoyed, some cars became museum pieces for younger enthusiasts trying to enter the community. The message could feel clear: you don't belong here. The narrator of the story experienced this firsthand. While entering the world of classic British cars, driving an old MG to shows with his family should have been a joyful experience, a chance to bond over shared passion. And sometimes it was, but other times, there was an unmistakable chill from certain members of the community, a subtle sense that newcomers weren't entirely welcome. It didn't take many people to create that atmosphere. Just a few dismissive voices could sour the experience for everyone else. Unfortunately, this problem isn't limited to classic car communities. It appears across nearly every corner of automotive culture. And then there's social media. In theory, platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok should have been incredible tools for enthusiasts. They allow builders to share knowledge, inspire creativity, and connect with communities around the world. Young people are losing interest in cars altogether. In 1983, nearly half of all 16-year-olds in the United States had a driver's license. By 2008, that number dropped to around 31%. Today, it hovers closer to 25%.